Rauranga tira mā tēnā koutou, huri no te whare. Tēnā koe pā, koe tuku mai, te mihi ki au, tēnei ahi ai. Koutou katoa, te mana whenua, tātou I hara mai no ngā hau e whā. Tēnā koutou, tēnā no tātou katoa. All the Pacific greetings that Leala Manua said, I'm with her in spirit. Kia ora tātou kātou toa. Kia ora tātou kātou toa I te aro o mātou te toa. I was in two minds when I read the theme of this conference. It's got to be about the child. I've never talked about a child by themselves. I have an only son, but he's got 16 sisters. And I thought, I'm going to talk about the child. It's got to be about the child. My challenge to you today has got to be about you, the teacher. It's got to be about you, the teacher. You are the most important and critical person in the child's education journey after the mother. There is no classroom without you, the teacher. There is no knowledge being transferred without you, the teacher. In fact, we can't collect the uncollectible statistics. We cannot measure against standards that don't make sense. We cannot deal about transition without you, the teacher. I promise no statistics today from me. I'm pretty sure you know the state of education in your school, in your rohe, in this country. I'm pretty sure you know who gets across the line and who doesn't. And I'm even more convinced that you know how thin the line is. So that when we are talking about 2% advantage or 2% growth in the number of Pacifica achievement, we are talking about 2% below zero. And we are talking about sustaining the same chasm all the way along. So no, I promised I wasn't going to talk about statistics. And given that the minister's coming, I feel a bit in awe of you, not the minister, of you, to receive. Heke be nice. Heke lives just down the road from me. And all my whānau Ngāti Porou, whānau to Heke, not to me. I go to church about once in a blue moon. They don't come too often. But when I do, it's an awesome experience. And I bring to you the message from my pastor from at least 6 years ago. What we plant today will be their harvest tomorrow. What we plant today will be their harvest tomorrow. What you plant today in your Pacifica learner, in your Māori learner, in your Tūhoe learner, in your Dutch learner, in your new migrant learner, what you plant today will be their harvest tomorrow. In fact, we are harvesting today what somebody planted 20 years ago. Rubbish. We are the recipients of a planting time when everyone thought that we should all look alike. Well, hello, great fail. That we should know the same kinds of things because the same kinds of things are important for all of us to know. That we should know the Greek classics, that we should know about Socrates, tangents, cosines, that we should be able to write with a quaint slant when we're doing handwriting, that all girls should do the Pitman's exams. You know, I'll tell you something about my mother. God bless her soul. My mother thought that a real woman could cook, sew, and type. Well, I'm going to be doing some remedial classes for a while. The point being that a lot of what we thought was really important 20 years ago didn't go very far. Because some of the products of our teaching of that time still left school without being able to read properly, write, communicate, critically analyze, use the library, the Dewey system, know how to do APA referencing. I've just been marking thesis. And yet they send their children, we send our children, you send your children back to the same schools for the same things. And the tools that we are using are the same tools. And the expectations that we have are the same expectations. Let's do some maths. It's one of those things I've got to do some remedial work in as well. 100 FOBs start school at the age of 5. So you recognize them. 50% go to ECE education. The other 50 come straight from home to the school. 50% of those FOBs that started out in the home to ECE have some resemblance of reading and literacy skills. Of that 50%, 45% might be able to write their name. They can say yes, or my son said for 2 years was, "You hungry, boy? Your mummy's late. Shall we eat again?" He figured if he just kept his head going, he'd be all right. So we have 45% of the 100 students that started off in ECE coming through and can write their name, perhaps. Of that 45, all 45% of them are going to primary school. But because they haven't had the preparation that they needed at ECE, why? Because we're supposed to suppose that all ECE education is fantastic. Did you notice that in the government statistics it only talks about high quality? So I want them to point out where's the poor quality ECE, if only the high quality makes the difference. 45% of them go through ECE, go to primary school. Hello, 20% of the 45. We're now talking about 20% of the 45. What's 20% of 45? 9 out of 100 have gone through all the standards. They're the ones that are going to make it through. 9 students of the original 100 have gone through primary school ready to tackle secondary school. What's at secondary school? Oh, that was a question. What's at secondary school? The cafeteria. And NCA level 1, NCA level 2, and NCA level 3. Of that 9, how many do you think are going to get through NCA level 3? God, you're cynical. 50%, 4.5. We start with 100 and we end up with 4.5. Of the 4.5 students, only 50% of them are going to go on to tertiary education. We started with 100 children, and 4.5 are going to move on. That's Pacifica education. I've got no proof, no evidence, I just know. My cousins are all at home watching TV, watching movies while I go to work every day. The seeds that we plant today, Pacifica learners and their families and their communities harvest. It doesn't have to be the way that it is. In fact, it's a great opportunity. I feel like a bit of a free air thing coming on now. It's Education 101, consciousness raising. Some people aren't getting through, something's not working. Something's not working. Whatever it is that we are doing, day in, day out, is not working. Hello. Knock, knock. Nobody's a whare, there's no doors. There's no use pointing at the Pacifica who aren't achieving or making it through. There's no use going on about the political system because we can't change some of these things. We don't have a hands contact with any of them. But we can change ourselves. We can change ourselves. We can decide today that we are going to take a step forward and prioritize Pacifica learners. Please say after me, I promise to drop my Visa card. Oh, it was easier to get you to promise to prioritize Pacifica. The second thing we can do for ourselves is sharpen our tools. Koi, whakakoi. What is it that we are sharpening? Ourselves. We've all already been trained. Some of you have 2, 3, 4 degrees and a couple of diplomas in your pocket. But we haven't had the opportunity or the space to sharpen and to use them the way we would really want to use them. And the third thing I challenge you that we could do is to consider that we're not in this alone. That not one of us is in this alone. That we can create relationships to make this priority work. I should read what it said. What will it take? Not being a gardener myself, everything's very theoretical, you know, when you go to university. I theorize that you need to prepare the soil because sometimes the soil has just been flourishing in rubbish for 20 years. Might need some weeding. Some of you bury your rubbish in the garden. I've seen some gardens of late with rocks and bricks. We need to prepare the soil. We need to know that it's good, fertile soil to put kai in. We need to get it checked. We need to choose seeds because not any old seed will do. If we're planting in October, we don't want something that really should be planted in April. It will never survive. We need to know that the soil that we are going to scatter these seeds on can receive these quality seeds so they might grow. The seeds that we scatter will need to be nurtured, watered. We plant, we water, we weed. That's the hard job. We weed and we prune. Whether you are the gardener or the teacher in the classroom, you are the instrument of change. If it's got to be about the child, it's got to start with you. You are the most important person in the education system that the child gets to meet. I remember my teacher at primary school on the first day of school. I remember her. I remember that she gave me a hug. I remember that she helped me to write. I remember that she always had a soft tone. I also remember the cow 3 years later, the different cow, who separated me from the rest of the students. I can't imagine why. So what is important after you? Because you're number one. What is important? The Pacifica learner. And one of the most important things about the Pacifica learner is that in order for them to learn, we have to dismantle the assembly line. I was going to say it's not about one size fits all, but given some of the sizes up here, we are not Ford. We are not Todd Motors. That used to exist in Poriro, where I work sometimes, most of the time. We're not a car assembly line getting out the same product, because sometimes I think that's our expectation. We feed our children with the same content, and we go, what's wrong with them? That they get it. I've given them the best of everything I've got, and they still don't get it. It's not a car assembly line. Secondly, for the Pacifica learner, we need to negotiate the space to koma, to talanoa. Imagine if every teacher just took the time once, every semester, and you have terms, don't you? Once a term, to have a quiet chat. Just talk and make the child the most important person in the world for those 2 minutes. It doesn't matter that it's not an hour, but just for 2 minutes. It's not about anything that's constructed in the classroom. It's just about the child. It's about clearing the space so you can talanoa. Let the child and the parents and the family and their community design their learning house. If what we are doing is rendering 4.5 products at the end of the assembly line, we are sending home 95.5 without anything. What have we got to lose to try something different? Why don't we just ask them? What have we got to lose? Because all the know-how of Pākehā for the last 200 years ain't clicking. Secondly, I think that there is a challenge for us if we're going to take the risk and ask children and their families what they want in their learning house, how to design their learning house. We might want to consider that our subjects, and I'm really interested that I heard this being brought up before, don't have to be compartmentalized. So that science is separate from maths, is separate from social studies, is separate from te reo, is separate from art, is separate from drama. Can you imagine sitting in a house and talanoa with the child or children and talk about the construction of the house, its structure, and the different kinds of material that have built this house? Can you imagine what it's like if we start to discuss the purpose of different rooms? We're getting spooky here because we're getting a bit creative. Can you imagine what it would be like in that same house where we talked about measurements and structure and materials when we start to talk about customs and rituals? In this part of the house, this is what we do here. But we don't do it in that part of the house. Why don't we do it in that part of the house? Well, because there's no water over there. The water's over here. So we bring that kind of activity over here where there's water. We talk about the skills and the craftsmen who put the house together. We talk about the landscaping, such as it is. There's no landscaping at my place. There's about 4 inches of grass, and my son wanted $40 for me to pay him to weed eater. I said I'd pay the boy next door. He said, okay, give me 5. But what we also understand when we are talking about the house, the learning house that this child is learning in, are the other houses inside the community and why they are positioned where they are positioned. So that kids get to understand not only what is constructed around them, why they sit inside, but also who are the others around them. The last thing I think that makes a difference for Pacifica learners are the collaborative relationships. I think collaboration means that, one, there's an agreement that we're on this trip together. We agree that this is our kaupapa. We agree that this is the goal that we are aiming for. I'm going to do something and you're going to do something. Our talanoa is about understanding what we are each going to do. So what relationships are collaborative relationships? I suggest the first kind builds your capability. There's no use having friends that can't contribute to the common cause. Lose them. Whatever's not your strength, that's the friend to follow. I know damn well that I can't walk across the campus in 2 minutes, but I know everyone that can. We need relationships to build relationships with people who build our capabilities and whose capabilities we can build. Secondly, we need relationships where we can share intelligence. I'm not talking about schools, I'm talking about individuals. What is your learning today from this classroom setting? Who have you shared it with? Where have you shared that gem? When the light bulb went off for that student and went off for yourself, where did you share it? Oh, I took it home and put it in my toasted sandwich. The last kind of collaborative relationship I suggest is R. It's not a singular, it's a plural. Are relationships that facilitate transition for the learner. So that we know that there are people like mine who are following this child through and will make sure that they leave here well and they get to their next destination well, and will stay with them for a little while until they're ready. 3 types of relationships that build your capability, that you can share intelligence with and share intelligence with you, and thirdly, that facilitate transition. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to invite you to turn around to your tables. Turn into your tables? Sounds like it's got 2 syllables. Okay. I want you to share one example of where you have witnessed or been part of planting a positive seed in a Pacifica learner. One example where you know their light bulb went off and they got it. What was it? How did it happen? You have 1.5 minutes. People, I'm going to challenge you. I want you to consider relationships, and you saw the 3 that I talked about. Relationships that build your capability, your Pacifica capability, relationships that allow you to share intelligence, and relationships that facilitate transition. I want you individually and then to share one example of each. Within the next 6 days, who will you go and see and talk to help build your Pacifica capability? In the next 6 days, who might you go and talk to help build your Pacifica capability? You have 1.5 tokelo minutes. Your next task, share intelligence. In 6 days, you've identified who or what you will go to build your Pacifica capability. Now I'm going to test you in 6 weeks. Who will you share your Pacifica intelligence with? Who will you share? Who more than yourself and the people sitting at your table? Who will you share your Pacifica intelligence with? Who will you make a relationship with to support the transition of the Pacifica child in your class, either to their next class or their next school? Who will you make a relationship with to support the transition of the Pacifica children in your class? Who will you make a facilitation relationship with within the next month? You have 1.30 seconds, 1 minute, 30 seconds. This is Hawaiian time. Friends, if it's about the child, it's actually about you. And so I want to remind you that you You are the change agent in all of this. We can espouse all sort of policies. You know, last year they were talking about intersectoral groups. This year they're talking about cross-government. And I looked across the table, it's the same people. New initiatives, we're all excited because it's a new initiative. Same people. No new dollars. We can talk and focus about all the policies. And that's what Louise and her team do. They challenge that for you. They challenge that for all of us. But in your hands, you have the power to make a change all by yourself. In the classroom. You know the story about the half full glass. If you keep thinking that it's empty, it's always going to be empty. But if you think that this is something that is half full and we can build on it, then we have some possibilities. You are the change. Whatever you plant today, whatever seed you choose to plant today, will be the harvest for Pacifica learners and Pacifica families in 20 years' time. Because we are the recipients of what was planted 20 years ago, and hardly anyone got across the line. You have the capability here and now to make yourself, just on a little piece of paper. You paid for this paper, by the way. You claim yourself your piece of paper. What for? Because you can make a 6-day plan. It doesn't have to have a memorandum of understanding being exchanged between schools. This is about collaborative teachers, collaborative learners. You can write this down, that this is what I am going to commit myself to. In the next 6 days, I will achieve this step. In 6 weeks, I am going to share and to receive intelligence so that I know that not only am I building my capability, but I am fostering the environment that my learners are learning in. And in 1 month, the month before kids end school for 2015, I'm going to make sure that I've walked across the road to the primary school, walked across the road to the early childhood centre, walked next door to the teacher I can't stand, have a cup of tea in the staff room. Yeah, it's not all love out there. I'm going to have a conversation and say, I want to tell you about Tama. I want to tell you about Tama and how wonderful a child he is and what he responds to. Can I please tell you about Leva? Now, her reading's not that strong, but that's never held her back because her maths is awesome. I want to tell you about Francis. Francis loves oratory, and he mimics his dad who does preaching every Sunday. I challenge you to make your 6-day plan, a 6-week plan, a 1-month plan, because the person you have the most authority over is yourself. Kia ora.